My broke boyfriend is trying to live off me like a parasite by forcing me to have kids without getting married. There's $0 in my savings because of him, and there's zero chance of saving this relationship, so now, he can go ahead and leave his kids on the tissues. Posted by you/throwraINFJ. My boyfriend, 37M, and I, 29F, moved in together about a year ago. I've been clear since our second date that I don't want biological kids. I've talked it through with him many times, and up until about 2.5 weeks ago, I thought we were on the same page. He told me he didn't think he could do another 18 years of raising a child since he already has a 10-year-old daughter. She just moved in with us in January. We bought a house, got a dog, and I was planning for a life with him and his daughter. At first, he said he got the house so his daughter would have a bedroom. But the other night, he said the real reason was to build an actual family by having a child with me, making the family we already have seem less important. I've been crying in secret for 2 weeks. Yesterday, I realized I probably can't stay in this relationship. I wanted marriage, but he's telling me marriage means having a child with him. I can't compromise that part of myself. But at the same time, I'm trying not to spiral. My car broke down yesterday, oil is leaking everywhere, and I have no savings. I've been living paycheck to paycheck, spending money on our mortgage, pets, activities with his daughter, and paying off debt. I don't know what to do next. The hardest part is that I still love him so much. He's a good person, and everything feels normal except that he doesn't want to get married anymore unless we have a kid, which I still don't want. I know I need to leave, but it's tough to figure out how, especially while sorting through all my emotions. To clarify, I'm not on the mortgage. I told him I wouldn't sign anything until we got married. I've been helping with basic living expenses like the mortgage, bills, and groceries because I thought we were building a life together. I didn't want him to carry the load alone because I believed in our partnership. He supported me too, but he's also ignored my voice in ways I dismissed, something I now see more clearly. I really appreciate everyone's support and advice. It's been helpful, validating my decision. Update 1, 6 days later. So, a few people asked for an update. Well, I definitely have one. I dropped my car off at the mechanics on Friday and didn't hear back until Tuesday. That afternoon, he called to tell me he'd found the issue, and it would cost less than $300 to fix. He said it would take about a week. I made arrangements with a kind coworker for rides to work, but then that same evening, the mechanic called again. He had already gotten the part, replaced it, and said my car would be ready for pickup that night. Tuesday night, when I got home, things took a turn. My boyfriend and I had a very intense conversation. He made it clear that he doesn't care about getting married. He spent about 2 hours dismissing the importance of marriage to me, saying that the way I feel about marriage is how he feels about having kids. He said nothing would change if we got married, but when I asked why it mattered so much to him if nothing would change, he had no real answer. Just more deflection and patronizing comments. It was heartbreaking. I cried from 9 p.m. until 1 a.m. and fell asleep sobbing. There was no room for denial anymore, and with my car fixed, I had an out. Wednesday, I reached out to a landlord I had rented from before. They had a unit available, within my budget, at a flat rate. She called me back and said I could come see it the next day. That brings us to today. After work, I went straight to check out the apartment. It's small, but perfect. I decided to take it. I knew I had to tell him when I got home. When he walked in, I asked if he had any plans for the evening, and he said no, so we had the conversation. I told him I was moving out. When he asked why, I explained that our unspoken expectations were affecting our relationship and that living together was making it harder to get clarity. He told me he had invested everything in our relationship and asked what I had invested. He acted like I had steamrolled him the whole time and said he had compromised on having kids. But when he asked for one thing, I refused. He guilt-tripped me again, saying this was his last chance to have kids because of his age. He even said he'll never date again if we break up. He blamed me for having to explain this to his daughter and implied I wouldn't be allowed to say goodbye to her. He seemed surprised when I said I wanted the dog to stay with him. I told him marriage and kids aren't something we can compromise on. We just want different things, and I don't see a way to bridge that gap. I made it clear that I'm not ending the relationship because I don't care about him, his daughter, or our life together. I'm doing it because I believe it's the right thing to do. I admitted that I could be wrong, but I didn't know what else to say. He went back to downplaying marriage. He said he was already committed to the relationship without needing marriage and viewed it as just an institution. Then, he said the final thing that shut it all down for me. He claimed he didn't need a piece of paper to validate our relationship and, unlike me, hadn't been raised in a religious environment of sheep that made him think marriage was essential to a successful relationship. After that, I cried a lot, got some ice cream, and felt better. I'm starting to move into the new apartment tomorrow, and everything has fallen into place so quickly, which tells me I'm on the right path. Thanks to everyone for the encouragement. I thought I was going crazy, but after tonight, I realized that I only feel crazy after talking to him. Now, I'm looking forward to having my own space again, quiet and just for me. I know I'll still be sad for a while, but I also know I'm going to be okay. Relevant comments. I just have to say, even though I'm a stranger, I've been in relationships that made me feel stupid and crazy too, and I am so proud of you for what you did. You absolutely did the right thing. Here's to new beginnings. It's going to be tough for a little while, mostly because your routines will be thrown off. But I bet in 2 months, you'll be feeling so good. Up. Thank you for this. You made me tear up. I've been crying almost every day for 2 weeks, and today is the first time I haven't felt that weight. It's like my whole body has been lifted up to my soul. There's still a lot to do, but I can already feel the difference. And what you said about routines is so true. This morning, I went to make coffee, and it hit me how special that hour of our mornings with coffee together was. I realized we won't have that anymore, and I cried. But now, I get to create my own routines again. Additional info from Up. I think I mentioned in an earlier comment that there were probably signs I didn't recognize as important at the time. A lot of my concerns only became clear after we moved in together. But his sudden shift in attitude about marriage shows me he wasn't really ready to commit fully. Looking back, our intimacy issues started around the 1-year mark, shortly after we moved in together. It only got worse, and I think a lot of it might have come from him bottling up these feelings and resentments. He wasn't honest with me, but the tricky part about manipulation is that most people who manipulate don't do it with bad intentions. Sadly, I let myself trust and rely on him more than I truly knew him. That led me to make big commitments, like moving in and helping with living expenses and his daughter, before I was sure we were really compatible. The way he's acting now, it feels like he sees this as a one-sided breakup, even though we were at a mutual deadlock in our values. But he doesn't seem to see it that way. I think when I told him I was moving out, his reaction was a mix of devastation and fear. He knows how much I've supported him and his daughter throughout our relationship. His lashing out was defensive and hurtful, but I'm thankful that right now he's acting like I don't exist, which is making the moving process easier. Still, I can see that he's uncomfortable and sad, just like I am. I'm terrified, but deep down, I know this was the right decision. I trust that these feelings will pass. Ironically, I never wanted to get married until I met my, now ex-boyfriend. That was something we talked about after dating for about a year. In hindsight, I think he might have just been telling me what he thought I wanted to hear. If he had been upfront about his true feelings back then, I probably would have walked away. So, in that sense, I wanted to marry him specifically because I thought I had found a true partner. In that first year, nothing felt transactional. He was attentive, compassionate when I expressed strong emotions, curious, thoughtful, and considerate. We seemed to work well together and really pushed each other to grow. I can honestly say I wouldn't be the person I am today without that relationship. It felt like we shared the same goals: self-improvement, working toward financial independence, valuing authenticity, and continuous learning. At one point, he even completed a training on how to be a better dad and partner through a program with one of his favorite self-help authors. That's what made everything so confusing, because it seemed like we were building something solid. But now, I see it wasn't as aligned as I thought. Things really changed once we moved in together, and it shifted even more after his daughter came to live with us. One of the main reasons I wanted to marry him specifically was because I'd never been in a relationship where someone challenged me to be a better person. My spirituality grew stronger, and I became more confident in sharing my thoughts and feelings because, at least in that first year, he gave me the space to do so. And I absolutely loved his daughter. Getting to know her and being a consistent support for her helped me grow in ways I truly valued. I became a better person, more patient, with a better sense of humor, and I learned to let go of control issues. She even called me her stepmom, and I loved being that for her, whatever it meant in her eyes. To me, there's a sense of unity in marriage, and I wanted to feel fully integrated with both him and her in that way. Marriage seemed like the natural next step. I also wanted to be involved in their lives to that extent. I never wanted something to happen where I wouldn't have the protection or right to be involved in either of their lives if things got tough. For me, marriage is a total commitment. It's about sharing values, goals, assets, community, and life on every level. I wanted that unity with him, and at one point, I really believed I could trust him enough to be that vulnerable. I wanted to share that level of commitment with him. But now, looking back, I can see that if we had moved forward with marriage, it probably would have been disastrous. So, here we are.